I think we're all really excited about the garden shaft. Craig, why the garden shaft? What interests you about it?
The water sample had gold in it.
To you guys who said the Oak Island treasure was merely a myth and a waste of time, it's time to eat those words. Because now, thanks to over 200 years of searching and in-depth exploration, History Channel has finally confirmed something every adventurer and treasure hunter has been dying to hear. And while you might not have followed others to the small island off the coast of Nova Scotia, you have been captivated by its tales of hidden riches and ancient curses. So join us as we flesh out what the History Channel discovered at this Oak Island treasure and what it means for veteran and new treasure hunters. This discovery is not just about golden knives and cups or beautiful jewels inlaid with precious stones, but it also gives us a better understanding of the history of what has been a hot ground of exploration. That said, we'll start this mind-blowing story by applauding the History Channel's continued resolve. They have had their finger in the Oak Island treasure jar for quite some time despite having little to show for their huge effort. They launched the multi-season reality television series called The Curse of Oak Island on January 6, 2014. The show was anchored by brothers Marty and Rick Lagina with their dedicated team. They went with their cameras and fans got to tag along for the journey. Using modern technology, the brothers and their team began their search on the island for treasure. They spent countless hours digging, analyzing, and theorizing about the legendary treasure. And within the first season of their show, fans were introduced to areas of interest like the Money Pit, Nolan's Cross, the Hatch, and the Swamp. While some were hopeful that the team would be rewarded for their effort, others believed that fans would be greatly disappointed. And you can understand why people thought this after over 200 years of searching. As the seasons progressed, the show dug up various coins and artifacts, including a Spanish copper coin believed to be dated to the 1700s. Amongst other things, they found a supposed 12th century manuscript, a Rotoli garnet brooch that was almost 500 years old, and a piece of sheepskin parchment with markings that looked like medieval text on it. The lack of a wholesale treasure after a couple of seasons began to frustrate some fans, and this led to speculations that the show was a hoax. There were those who didn't think the show was to blame, believing that there was treasure at some point, but it had already been found a long time ago, and it was never reported. Despite the backlash, The Curse of Oak Island continued into its 12th season and had quite a number of spin-offs before it was temporarily paused. That was until the History Channel confirmed shocking findings that sent shockwaves through the entire treasure hunting community. The first find had been aptly named the Money Pit. The crew had sent a sonar scanner down bore hole L15, and the images it sent from about 140 feet deep were of a huge void. Initially, the team thought it would be weird if this were a natural cave, but a closer look at the displays from the sonar scanner showed that there was no way this was a cave. The images had a massive linear cavity with distinct, well-defined walls. This was obviously an artificial construction. While the team was theorizing on what it could be and how monumental this discovery was, something was happening on another part of the island. The second find was from what the team had thought was a naturally occurring swamp on the island. Thanks to a ground-penetrating radar, the state-of-the-art conductivity survey had lit up as it scanned the swamp, showing that something of high metallic content was underneath. This huge buried structure looked exactly like a man-made dam system. But was a dam doing here? The team took a peek at their research notes and recalled a controversial theory that Fred Nolan, a researcher, had proposed. He had stated then that Oak Island was once two separate islands. Quite a number of people disagreed with him at the time, but with the radar showing an artificial dam now, it confirmed that it had been built to create the swamp, thereby merging two islands into one. But the question was why? Why go through all that trouble? The answer is simple. When has man ever gone through any trouble, if not to protect or hide something of value? The swamp wasn't natural. It was serving as a veil, and it had done its job exceptionally well for at least over 200 years. The team wondered if this swamp was just located in a random place, but they soon found out it wasn't. It was the exact location of where the Jack Adams box was supposed to be. And anyone familiar with pirate stories would tell you that the Jack Adams box was said to contain artifacts you simply can't put a price on. At this point, The team knew they needed more minds on deck. So, they called in Zena Halpen, a researcher who had access to two very ancient maps that showed Oak Island before modern history. One map was dated 1179 and had a mysterious dot labeled Rodong that some researchers have theorized was connected to Henry Sinclair, who was heavily linked to the Knights Templar. The second map was French from 1347 and contained instructions of some kind. With two important maps in hand, the team needed a way forward, and all it took was a stroke of genius. They decided to compare these old maps to the island's current layout. Simple idea, but brilliant. They overlaid Zena's ancient maps onto modern high-resolution satellite images of Oak Island, and the old map lined up almost perfectly with the island's borders and features. And then it was seen, clear as day. Located right near Dave Blankenship's house, it was an obvious bright spot on both the old map and the new satellite image. Fortunately, the area where Dave lived was also part of the location under serious scrutiny. Dave himself had lived all his life in treasure hunting. His dad, Dan Blankenship, was a treasure seeker on Oak Island for nearly 5 decades and was responsible for drilling borehole 10X. He had reportedly dived to the bottom of the deepest shaft on the island. Dave had been helping his father on the island since the 70s and was one of only 3 permanent inhabitants of Oak Island. The clear, bright spot on both maps was shaped like a circle. Without wasting time, the team hurried to Dave's house. They soon discovered that the spot was a door. A heavily corroded hatch specifically. After centuries, for the first time, a door was found. The team took out the metal detectors and began to sweep the area. The detectors soon began to buzz, confirming that indeed there was something underground. There was nothing holding the crew back. They opened the hatch and a set of stone steps unrolled into a dark space. As they descended the stairs, they couldn't help but pay attention to the moss that had been undisturbed for hundreds of years. The steps went straight down into a long corridor that kept twisting as they moved forward. Eventually, it gave way to a large room that was quite big with a high arch ceiling. The walls were covered in strange markings and symbols. The team immediately understood that this was clearly an important room or even sacred. In the center of the room was a big stone table and there were a number of things on it. There were several small, intricately carved wooden chests and old colored scrolls. The team was shocked beyond, as you would expect. But that shock soon took another step higher when they saw the cup coin holding old gold coins that shine despite the dust. After the group recovered from that, they noticed that the symbols carved into the chest on the table matched the ones on the walls. Taking another look at the walls, they realized that there was another doorway that was sealed shut with a huge solid stone slab. This door was so heavy that it took both humans and machines to move it slightly out of position. And when they managed to get past it, they were shocked by what they saw. The room they entered was a smaller one than the one they had left, and its walls were lined with wooden shelves, and on those shelves sat dozens upon dozens of small, intricately carved boxes like the ones they had seen on the table in the bigger room. The team started to look inside these beautiful ancient boxes, and inside were ancient scrolls with strange writings. In some boxes were tools used for navigation that the team could swear were not supposed to exist at the time. The people who built these rooms and placed these objects there existed. This was a library of information long lost and forgotten, a treasure trove of historical artifacts that was so important that someone had gone through so much difficulty and work to hide them. Whether for protection or preservation from the world, the team of the Curse of Oak Island had come upon things that the treasure hunting community and honestly everyone knows would change the way we look at a number of things. Some insiders suggest that what has been found could rewrite the history books. Even experts agree that the findings may include artifacts that provide insight into the island's past, possibly linking it to historical figures and events. This is truly a significant moment in the history of treasure hunting. The implications of this discovery are so many that we can't begin to discuss them here. One major one that must be mentioned is that it reignites interest in the island's unsolved mysteries. And the effect was immediately seen as History Channel announced that the 13th season of The Curse of Oak Island will premiere on November 4, 2025. This is something the show deserves. It has earned it. When Rick and Marty Lagina set out to tame what seemed untamable, they were backed by History Channel. They wanted real facts that would produce final and definite answers.